at WPWA, while I was working there, I got to be very good friends with the people at Shadow Traffic just by talking to them on the phone. So somehow I conned them in to give me a job. And this is all while I was going to college. So I was a student, and I was working at radio and working my way up into trying to be a traffic reporter, because that's the next step. So I was finally hired, but I was a traffic gatherer at the time. So that means every morning at, I think it was like 4:30 a.m., I would have to wake up, drive up to Northeast Airport in Northeast Philadelphia. My plane would take off at 6 a.m. I would fly around for 3 hours, and I would gather the traffic. I would just look at the Schuylkill Expressway, 95, the Blue Route, then I would land at 9 a.m. when the rush hour was done. Then I had to go back up in the afternoon and fly from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I would grab all the traffic, and then I would report it back to a producer who would put it to the anchor, and they would put it out over the radio and on television. I did that for 4 years, and we had many mistakes. The planes were single engine planes, and we would have to fly all over the place. There was planes where the engine stopped. We had to make emergency landings all the time. It was just nuts. I mean, it was crazy. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years just in the plane, and then worked my way up into being a producer. And like I said, this is still while I was in school. So I was finished with the school I was at then, and then I went to a minimal broadcasting school. It was only a 3-month program for me to develop more of how I speak over the radio. Because at that point, I really wasn't getting that much exposure over the radio. It was more just talking, and then every once in a while, I would have a 5-second recorded production where I would have to put on the radio station. So I was getting minimal exposure. So at that point, while I was working my way through there, I finally got a position to be in the studio. And then I was on 5 stations every hour for 7 to 8 hours a day. So I'm finally starting to work my way up. Once I finished there, I got a job at Fox 29 in Philadelphia as an assignment editor. In the television studio, there are 5 major components. There's an assignment desk. Does anybody know what an assignment desk is? There you go. Presently, I'm on the assignment desk every day, constantly. I pretty much live there, as well as my other co-workers, as Terry can know. The assignment desk is the heart of the newsroom. This is where your stories come from. We are the ones that pick up the phone constantly, tip line, Action News tip line, and then we get the stories. Once we get an idea of a story, we have to dig and dig and dig and find out exactly what that story is about. And if it's a good story, then we assign a reporter and a photographer to that story. The reporter and the photographer go out into the field, they gather all the elements. Elements are the different parts of the story. You always have to get 2 sides of the story. If you don't get 2 sides of the story, then you're considered biased. And you cannot put that on the air. Number 1 rule of every story is honesty. It has to be honest. Everything has to be accurate. You can put all of your creativity into it and make the story flourish, but it has to be accurate and honest. So once that, I guess we would come up with maybe 10 to 15 main stories a day. And the producers pick out which ones are the best, and then they put it into different shows. I cannot be a producer. A line producer is the people who put all the different reporters and little stories into shows. It's too tedious for me. There's a lot of counting, there's a lot of, everything has to fit perfectly. It's a huge puzzle, and they just squish it all together, and it's there for a half hour. And they have to make it look fast, and then get on the air. Am I losing anyone? Am I going too fast? Because in my head, I seem to be all over the place. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because I'm all over the place. But, so what happens is, in news, is getting your foot in the door first. Don't be afraid to get that low job, because you have to excel. You excel at that job, and you'll move your way up. And you'll move your way up, and move your way up. Don't be afraid to move. Once I left Fox 29, I was only there for a few years because I wasn't moving up. I couldn't see myself moving up fast enough at that place, and I wanted to learn different areas. So I moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because it was too cold up here and I wanted some sun. So I went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I worked at WPEC in West Palm Beach, which is a 45-minute drive. I also freelanced in Miami. So what I did there was I learned different news in a different region of America. In Philadelphia, we have news. In Florida, they have news. It's different. It's different everywhere. When you start does anyone want to be on air? An anchor, a reporter? There you go. Don't be afraid to start somewhere small. Everybody goes to places like Wichita, Kansas, and they report and they build up their resume. They build up their tape. Once you do that, and you perfect what you're doing, and you become comfortable in who you are as a reporter and confident. Confidence is huge. Make sure that you read over the story constantly until you feel the story. And then you do that, and then build your resume and your tape up. Then you can go to a different, higher market, and a higher market, and a higher market. In Philadelphia, we're number 4 in the country. We are the 4th largest market in the country. There's New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, then Dallas, then us. It could be Houston. I think it's Houston, yeah. And then us. We have the most people, we have the 4th largest people watching television in our area. So if you're on TV here, it's pretty darn good. Channel 6, well, I left Florida and came to Channel 6 8 years ago. And once I came to Channel 6, I knew that I was going to stay there for the rest of my career, no matter what opportunities are out there, what of me moving up anywhere, or of me trying a different aspect of the news. I'm staying at Channel 6. Channel 6 is the #1 station in the country, local news-wise. We've been #1 for close to 40 years now. And for a local station to act like that and to be like that really shows something. We have people on the air that have been on the air for close to 40 years. We had a guy leave last year, 2 years ago. He was at Channel 6 for 55 years. He just worked there in the background. Actually, he fixed things. He fixed the vans, he fixed the cameras, he fixed all sorts of stuff, but he was there for 55 years, and that really shows that once you're at a place and you love that place, you're not going anywhere, because they take care of you, and the people that you work with are family. And that's what shows when you watch the news. Do people here actually watch the news a lot? Do you really? When I was in high school, I didn't like the news. I really didn't. When I was lower in high school. But when I was a sophomore, I broke my spinal column, and then I was in a body cast for 9.5 months. So what happened was I was at home, and you're laughing at me because I was in a body cast. So I was at home, and then there was nothing to do. So I would watch CNN. And then I became interested in the news. Then I just wanted to do news. Because I thought it was so cool. There was something new every day. And that's the best part about the news, is that there's something new every day. You're not going in there and you're not going to do the exact same thing you did before, because there's a crazier story out there. I mean, there are some crazy stories. And they're the best ones. They're the ones that people talk about next day. there was an old guy in, I don't know, well, there was an old guy in Delaware. No one knew where he was. So the family went to check on the guy, and no one could find him. But he had 2 pet lizards. And they could find them. He died. The lizards ate him. They put him in a corner. It was the weirdest thing. Delaware has crazy dudes for some odd reason. I'm sorry, did I say it? But it's true. There are crazy stories. And they're the best ones. They're the ones that are going to make you think. I mean, that was 8 years ago, and I can still remember that story now. And there's just so many good things that you as students can do now that will help you in the long run. If you are a great writer, start a blog. And then when you go to college, let that blog be bigger. And then when you go to for your first job interview, show that person. I've been doing this for this long, and this is how much I have invested in the career that I want this to become. If you're in high school right now and you're trying to become, well, obviously you're in high school right now, but if you're trying to put together stories, there are tons of stories around you now that your audience would be interested in. Obviously, your audience are your other students. There are great stories just sitting right here. I remember doing tons of stories. When I was in the class, there was construction going on. So I would always do different things about construction. Why is it taking so long? Why does the hallway smell? How come we can hear you guys after you leave? It's the weirdest things, because you could actually hear banging after these guys left. Because apparently the echoes would just keep on banging back and forth. It was the weirdest. It was the kind of, can you tell what teacher's coming down the hall by the sound of their walk? I remember that one. That was pretty good. Everybody would walk differently, and you always knew which walk was the principal when you were in class, and it was kind of neat. And people were actually interested in it. Whether you knew what walk they were or not, people were interested in it. So these are the kind of things that just think about it at night, and don't let anybody let you say that's stupid. That's the worst thing. Because what you're doing now lets you think about something else that you can do at a higher level. And you can just bring it and bring it and bring it and bring it. Make sure no one ever lets you feel that you can't do this. This is a hard field to get into, but I see 1 million people get in it. You have to go to college. You have to actually want this. And if you want it, you're going to get it. So that's pretty much all I can tell you about the news, except for if you have any questions about me or if you have any questions about the news, I can tell you everything inside and out of it. The people on the air are the sweetest people in the world. Jim Gardner, who's been on there since dirt's been on the earth. He's the nicest guy in the world. He was at my wedding, Cecily Tying, all of them. They are the sweetest people in the world. Does anyone remember Gary Papa? Gary was awesome. Wait, a lot of things that you don't know about these people are their real lives behind the camera. Gary was a lawyer. Did you know? Hey, Gary went to Stanford. He was a lawyer. I think it was Stanford.
I think so. Well, I was cameraman for a long time. Jason?
Maricine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's my sister's brother-in-law, so I see him at family functions from time to time, and he told me all about Gary and how great of a guy he was.
Amazing, amazing. Gary was also a genius in the stock market. So I would always get my penny stock picks. You know what penny stocks are? You can just give $10 and get like 200,000 shares of some weird company somewhere. You would say, hey, throw $10 there. A month from now, it was $100. So these people are, they have so much that you don't see. And the difference between Channel 6 and the other stations is that they are truly friends on camera and off camera. When I came here and in 1994 and I was in that class, there was one other person in my class who's in news. And his name's Andy Wheeler. I don't know if anybody ever heard of him. He is a producer at KYW3. He does sports. Do you know Andy Wheeler?
That's my cousin.
Is it?
Yeah.
Andy and I are still great friends, even though we're competitors.
Yeah.
We're still great friends. He's a great guy. He's a sports genius. He's on the air. I can't believe I'm promoting the other station. He's on the air Sunday mornings giving his fantasy football picks, and he's a really great dude. I was just thinking of something that I wanted to touch on for you guys. I don't know if I'm helping you out or confusing you as much as I'm confused every day. But
Keep them out of class, they're happy.
Does anyone have any questions? And then maybe I'll come back to it if I can actually think of it. Go ahead.
Where did you go to college and what did you major in?
I went to Delaware County Community College. And I was working my way into the business, and I was full-time by the time I would graduate, so I left. I do not recommend that. I am the only person at Channel 6 that does not have a degree. And you don't know the obstacles that I've had to overcome because I do not have a degree. I'm trying to tell you guys the easy path to do it. My path is a lot harder than anybody you probably talk to about getting into the news business. There are plenty of people that we hire that go to all sorts of different schools. Most of them are in communications, journalism. Make sure you take higher English courses, and you can always major in communications and journalism, but also take the courses and back them up at a higher level. So once you leave college, when you're in college, make sure you're in television in college, because you need a tape as soon as you leave to bring to a station. And don't be afraid to go to a small station, because that small station in a couple of years will lead you to a higher and a higher and a higher station. But while you're in high school now, cherish it. This was the best 4 years of my life, somehow. I know every day there's something new, but this is the place where you're going to be able to do everything you want to do creatively in news, in the studio in here. You have an idea, bring it up. Do it. Do it after school. Any other questions? Go ahead.
How many people are usually on set? Like, is it always crowded, or is like calm?
Oh, it's always, no, it depends. All right, I can't just throw one word here and there. On a normal everyday 6 o'clock news, okay, you have Gardner, Cecily, sports, and then you have your director, you have your camera operators. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, throw in 9 because your weather producer's in the background. When there's Gardner's on set, everything's calm. No one speaks up or anything like that. No one freaks out because they know it's handled. When Monica and Rick are on there, then they know it's handled. Everyone's pretty much professional. It doesn't get out of hand unless there's a hurricane. With the hurricane, they're on there wall to wall. Wall to wall means that you're there 24 hours a day and you're constantly going live. That can get a little frustrating because you run out of things to say. Because we can't get all the information in time, because as an assignment editor, we're constantly in contact with the police and the fire department, the politicians and everything. But when those people are overloaded and they don't have the information, they can't provide it to us. And when I can't get the information, Gardner doesn't get the information. So at that point, and it's happened before, he said, "Where's my information?" It doesn't really get out of hand. There's times when we're live, or at the election night, Jim will stop the whole show and say, "I have a new state in." He'll stop the whole show. Brian Taff will want to talk about Ohio now, because Ohio just came in and that changed the whole election. But he is the boss, and you do what he says. He's the one on the air. He's the one out there. If he looks stupid, we all look stupid. And Jim's not gonna let that happen, he's a true professional. Did I answer your question? Okay. Anyone? Go ahead, bud. You have to be friends with everyone. Firefighters, police, politicians, secretaries that work for the higher people, millionaires, poor people, everybody. You have to have a contact and a source somewhere. Firefighters will call you from a scene if you're good friends with them and say, hey, it's raging, you have to get out here. Or, hey, it's really nothing, we knocked it down, it's out. Police will call me up on my cell phone and say, hey, I need you here. Because police love it when, some police do, they love it when the news are there. Because they get validation for what they're doing. They see that their job and the good job they're doing is on the news. Politicians will always throw another politician under the bus. So you can always get a good story there. So millionaires are the main contributors to the politicians. So the millionaires always have good stories about those politicians or the other politicians that run against those politicians that they contribute to. And the other stories come from regular, everyday people that they're the real stories that people relate to. And getting a story that people relate to are the stories that make people want to come back and say, how's my neighbor doing today? Even if it's 50 miles away. They feel that that person is their neighbor because they saw it on Channel 6. I'm sorry, go ahead.